There are nights that don't touch your skin, but rearrange your soul. Nights where the world is quiet, the lights are off, and yet something inside you is screaming so loudly it makes silence feel violent. You lie in bed, the same sheets, the same ceiling, but everything has changed, and no one would know, not even you at first, because these nights don't come with thunder. They arrive with stillness. They dissolve you, not with chaos, but with a kind of quiet you can't outrun. You wake up the next day, you put on your clothes, you answer the messages, you sip the coffee, but you know, some part of you didn't come back. Something stayed behind in that invisible collapse. It wasn't grief, it wasn't rage, it was something colder, a silent fracture, an internal shift so subtle, even you question if it really happened. And yet, nothing feels the same. This is the kind of pain no one talks about, the kind that doesn't bleed, the kind that leaves no scars, no visible story, no reason, just a weight, just a strange distance between who you were and who you suddenly became. And that's the most disorienting part, the absence of explanation, the void where answers should be. You scroll through your memory, trying to pinpoint the moment it cracked, the cause, the why, but all you find is fog. You weren't hit, you weren't broken open, you just stopped returning to yourself. Jung said, "The shadow isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it whispers, and it's true. Sometimes the most violent revolutions happen without a sound. It's not the nights of chaos that break us. It's the nights of stillness, the ones where meaning evaporates and we're left staring into something that has no name, no shape, no mercy." Nietzsche said, when you look long into an abyss, the abyss also looks into you. But he didn't warn us about the nights when you don't even remember staring into it. You just wake up one day and feel like the abyss took something, a memory, a spark, a part of your reflection. So here's the question you've never dared to ask out loud. What if your worst wounds are the ones you never named? What if the night that changed everything never even left a mark? And if that's true, if the deepest pain is invisible, then what else might be hiding in your silence? It didn't come with a scream. It came with fatigue, a subtle detachment, a kind of emotional frostbite that spread while you kept moving. No one noticed, not even you, not right away, because the collapse that ruins a soul rarely looks dramatic. It looks like getting things done, like showing up, like answering messages you don't feel. It looks like you, in autopilot, smiling, responding, existing. But the light behind your eyes has dimmed, and the weight behind your chest has settled. You didn't break, you dissolved. There wasn't a single moment, no explosion. Just a slow leak in your ability to feel. And that's what makes it so cruel, its invisibility. People praise your strength, your reliability, but they don't see that every act of functioning is a quiet act of disappearance. Psychologists call it high-functioning depression, but labels feel sterile when your lived reality is this raw. It's not about a diagnosis, it's about walking through days like a ghost in your own life, detached not from others, but from yourself. You became efficient, too efficient, because emotions take time. Pain takes presence, and you've taught yourself to be faster than your own wounds. It wasn't a decision, it was a drift. You didn't choose numbness, it chose you slowly, like water wearing down a stone. And now here you are, responsive but unreachable, awake but absent. You tell yourself it's just a phase, that you're just tired. But deep down, you know this isn't just exhaustion, this is erosion. A silent decay of something once alive in you, and that's what nobody prepares you for, that not all ruins fall with noise, some just slowly stop being homes. There's a night you never forget, not because it broke you, but because it silenced something you once believed in. It wasn't sudden, it wasn't loud, it came like an understanding that tightened in your chest. No one is coming, not now, not later, and maybe they never were. You didn't cry. Not because you were strong, but because crying began to feel like a question with no one left to hear it. You looked at your phone, you rehearsed the message, and then you didn't send it. Because somewhere along the line, asking stopped being an act of hope and became an act of humiliation. That night didn't teach you resilience, it taught you silence. You stopped explaining, stopped reaching, stopped waiting for someone to read the things you could no longer say. And you convinced yourself this was maturity, that needing nothing was strength, but the truth was colder. It was surrender. Jung understood this moment. He called it the withdrawal of the self, when the soul, under threat, retreats from the external world, not in defiance but in despair. You didn't become distant by choice. You were driven there by the echo of unanswered nights. People think hitting a wall is what breaks you, but it's not. The real break is when you no longer knock. When your hand drops before you even try. When you don't expect rescue because hope has become a wound. And yet, even in that silence, something remains. A kind of watchfulness, a flicker, not faith, not desire, just the strange awareness that you're still here, quiet, but breathing. And maybe that's the beginning of something else, not a return to asking, but a deeper way of listening, not to the world, but to the part of you that never stopped waiting to be found. You smile, you answer, you function, and no one suspects that somewhere beneath the surface, something in you has been erased, not healed, not processed, erased, like a name scratched off a gravestone. You trained yourself to forget how much it hurt, not through therapy, not through clarity, but through repetition, through distraction, through the quiet rituals of avoidance that look like normal life. It starts small, a show that runs in the background, a drink that becomes routine. A conversation you keep light, so it never touches what's underneath. Every gesture is a rehearsal in forgetting. Every habit, a prayer to the God of detachment. You tell yourself you're doing better, that maybe it wasn't that bad, but then your body remembers. In the middle of the night, in the hesitation before joy, in the sudden, inexplicable tightness in your chest when something good happens, and you can't fully feel it. This is the cost of pretending it didn't matter. Psychologists call it dissociation, a way your mind protects you by fragmenting your experience. A defense mechanism, yes, but also a prison, because what you disown doesn't disappear, it just waits. Waits in the silence, waits in your patterns, waits in the way you vanish a little every time someone gets too close. You didn't move on, you just became fluent in pretending. You became efficient at denial. You polished the mask so well, even you started to believe in its smile. But no mask is perfect. Cracks appear, and in those cracks the truth whispers, you were never over it. You just became excellent at not looking back. You changed your surroundings, you changed your habits, maybe even changed your name, your job, your circle. But not the ending, not the feeling of collapse that always returns, in disguise but always familiar. You tell yourself this time will be different, but it's not, because the architecture beneath your life hasn't shifted, only the wallpaper. And under that fragile surface, the same fracture waits. It's not weakness, it's repetition. The unconscious revisiting of old pain, like returning to the ruins of a house you never stopped calling home. Psychologists call it trauma looping, a cycle that the nervous system obeys even after the mind forgets. Learned helplessness is what happens when pain becomes your reference point. Not comfort, not safety, just pain, known, predictable, and quietly dominant. You're not failing. You're obeying a script you didn't write, a story etched into your internal wiring before you knew how to question it. And each time you rebuild your life without rewriting that story, the collapse repeats. Different clothes, same emptiness, different path, same ending. You keep renovating, new goals, new routines, new faces. But beneath all of it, the foundation is cracked, not from neglect, but from an injury that was never named, never healed, just avoided. And this is the brutal truth. Until the script changes, the cycle doesn't, and the places where you break will keep finding you. No matter how far you run, it speaks with your tone, uses your language, knows your history, but it is not you. It tells you you're lazy, that you're late again, that you'll never catch up, that everyone else is moving forward while you're just circling your own failure. It speaks with authority because it's lived inside you for so long, you've stopped questioning where it came from. But if you slow down, really slow down, you'll notice something. That voice doesn't carry the warmth of your real thoughts. It doesn't ask, it accuses. It doesn't guide, it punishes. And no child is born with that cruelty. So where did it come from? Jung would call it the shadow. Not the dark parts you hide, but the unclaimed parts you absorbed. The voices of those who failed to love you right, who left you in silence, or judged you when you needed tenderness. You didn't choose those voices, but you made them familiar. And now they wear your face when they speak. You mistake it for discipline, for self-awareness. But it's not corrections, it's corrosion. You're not guiding yourself. You're echoing the nights when no one stood beside you. Ask yourself this: would you speak to a child the way you speak to yourself? Would you call them weak for being tired? Useless for being overwhelmed? Would you tear them down for needing time to rebuild? Then why have you done it to the one person who's been with you through every collapse, yourself? You survived alone, and in doing so you became both the survivor and the executioner. But maybe, just maybe, it's time to let that voice die. Not with hate, but with understanding. Because it never belonged to you in the first place. Did you enjoy the content and it made a difference for you? Click on Super Thanks and support our work. You don't cry anymore, and for a while you thought that meant something was finally working. You told yourself this must be healing, this quiet, this stillness, this ability to go through the day without breaking. But deep down you knew it was something else, not healing, just absence, because healing restores. But this has emptied you. You laugh sometimes, you speak, you perform, but nothing moves inside. There's no echo, no resistance, just a kind of flatness you can't describe, as if someone turned the volume down on your entire life, and you forgot what full sound ever felt like. And here is the cruel irony. The silence that once promised relief now feels like another kind of prison. What you call calm might be shut down. What you call stability might be avoidance. The truth is, you've built a life that doesn't hurt anymore, but it doesn't breathe either. There's a version of you that used to feel deeply, who got overwhelmed, who cried without shame, who believed that emotion was a form of being alive. That version didn't vanish. It retreated. It's waiting. Under the surface of this new self, the one who's managed, calculated, contained, the one who doesn't cry, because crying would mean remembering. You didn't stop hurting, you just buried the proof. And now the wound is quiet, but still open. You've mistaken silence for peace, but peace is presence. And right now, you're only half here. You've stopped listening to certain songs, stopped sitting in silence, stopped letting things touch you too deeply. Not because you've outgrown them, but because something in you knows. If you feel again, if you really feel, you'll remember. And the walls you've built might not survive that memory, so you avoid, quietly, skillfully. You curate your life like a museum of emotional neutrality. Nothing too close to joy, nothing too close to grief, just enough stimulation to distract, not enough to awaken. It's not laziness, it's protection. Against what? Against the re-entry into yourself. Because when you've spent years surviving numbness, aliveness becomes a threat, emotion becomes instability, intimacy becomes exposure. You no longer fear the darkness, you fear what might break the armor you built inside it. Frankl once said that man's search for meaning is what makes him human. But what if meaning itself became dangerous? What if to feel again would shatter the fragile order you've constructed to not drown? That's the dilemma. You've mistaken numbness for maturity. You wear it like wisdom, calm, poised, untouchable. But the truth is sharper. It's exile, emotional exile, a state where nothing can truly reach you and nothing within you dares to rise. You call it peace, you call it independence, but it's really a ritual of avoidance. A choreography designed to keep the soul just beneath the surface, because if you let it rise, if you let it feel, you'd have to face the part of you that never stopped waiting to be held. You wake up, you get through the day, you deliver, you respond, you continue. On the surface, everything works. You meet expectations, you fulfill roles. You are, in every visible way, functional. But when night comes and the masks slide off, there's a strange hollowness that settles in your chest. A dissonance, like watching your life through a glass pane you can't break. It's not sadness, not depression. It's something colder, the sensation of not existing inside your own life, of watching it happen around you, but not from you. You've become a shadow in your own narrative, present but not alive, surviving but not inhabiting. This is what Viktor Frankl called the existential vacuum, a condition not of pain, but of absence, where meaning has been stripped not by trauma, but by repetition, the repetition of showing up to a life that no longer feels like it was made for you. You perform, you produce, you even succeed sometimes, but success feels like a performance too. Applause doesn't echo where the soul has gone silent, and still you continue, because stopping would mean confronting the real question. Did something in you never return from that night? That night, the one no one saw, the one you don't speak of, the one that changed the way your insides connect. That night might still be alive long after you stop mentioning it, still shaping your voice, still choosing your silences, still deciding who you pretend to be. You survived that night. But survival is not existence, and maybe, just maybe, something in you is still waiting for permission to come back. This isn't about failure or weakness or brokenness. It never was. It's about abandonment, the kind that doesn't come from others, but from the silence that grew inside you when the pain became too heavy to carry forward, when the world didn't come, when no voice called you back, when no one stood between you and the collapse. So you did what you had to. You disappeared inside yourself, and for a while, it worked. It kept you alive. It gave you enough detachment to keep going, enough numbness to endure. But endurance is not existence. It is not integration. And what was never faced remains unfinished. Jung believed the shadow isn't your enemy, it's your map. The pain you buried is not a defect. It's the evidence that something inside you still wants to become whole, still wants to be seen. Even now, there is nothing to fix, nothing broken in the way the world has convinced you. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to stop hiding from the night that changed you and from the voice you buried to survive it. Frankl wrote, "What is to give light must endure burning." But maybe the burning wasn't punishment. Maybe it was transformation, a sacred kind of unraveling, a brutal kind of rebirth, because maybe tonight isn't the same night that shattered you. Maybe it's the first one that's listening, the first one that hears you fully, without rushing, without saving, without turning away. And maybe that's all healing really is, not a promise of joy, but a return to honesty. You are not alone. And yes, there is still time.